I am super encouraged by the fact that so many voted. Like you said, the numbers are just like, what, 90+% that voted in favor, and that's where I was just like, thank God, the masses have spoken.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We're going to get to Fairfax County, Virginia, where a couple of weeks ago we checked in with school workers in Fairfax County who were in the middle of the biggest public sector union campaign in decades, with 27,000 workers voting on whether or not they were going to unionize with the Fairfax Education Unions. This was made possible after the Virginia legislature gave local governments discretion about whether or not their employees could have collective bargaining rights. In 2023, the Fairfax County School Board passed a resolution allowing their employees to unionize. Since the law passed in the Virginia legislature in 2021, Joe DeManuel Hall in Labor Notes notes that so far the firefighters, IAFF, have won 5 contracts, as well as Prince William County teachers and support staff with a National Education Association affiliate. Richmond Schools workers have also organized, as have others, but in Virginia Beach, where some city workers started organizing with the United Electrical Workers before the law was passed, the city council recently rejected an IAFF petition for collective bargaining. Well, the workers at Fairfax County Schools in Virginia just won their union last week, so we wanted to follow up with them. We have on the line Leslie Houston, an educator and president of the Fairfax Education Association, David Walrod, educator and president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers, Eugenio Fisher, educator and rank-and-file supporter of the campaign, and Isaiah Woods, warehouse driver and rank-and-file supporter of the campaign. David, Leslie, Eugenio, Isaiah, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So obviously, we were talking about this last time with you, David and Leslie, about how big of a story this is, and how it really did not seem to us that in the run-up to the election, the media was properly kind of paying attention to the largest public sector union campaign in a quarter century. Since you won, though, there has been some more attention paid to the campaign. So Leslie, I guess I'll just start off with the reaction to the win among the community and the media, and just what has it been like since you won, and won overwhelmingly. Over 90% of instructional staff voted in favor of the union. Over 80% of operational staff voted in favor of the union. So really an overwhelming victory. So what has the reaction been like, Leslie?
It has been beyond positive. Beyond belief. For me, I've received phone calls. I received flowers and cards and hugs. The most important for me is when parents called to say thank you. They understood. They absolutely understood that this would be best for their kids as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And David, what have you seen from the reaction around the win?
The reaction I've seen has been overwhelmingly positive. It seems like we've gotten some positive stories in the press. Everybody that we're talking to is so excited. Like this was the final week of school, and we had lots of folks kind of tell us that this was enough to power them through this hard last couple days. The reaction has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's been really a joy to see how much hope that this has returned to some folks that have been working so hard for so long.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's been. I'm sure it's a big weight off your shoulders in some sense, although now, the fight is really going to begin, and we'll talk about that some shortly. But just to back up for a second, we had David and Leslie on last time, but we wanted to get on a couple of more people to kind of broaden the view of the campaign. We have on Eugenio Fisher and Isaiah Woods, who are both rank-and-file workers in Fairfax County Public Schools. So Isaiah, I'm interested in hearing from you just the work working conditions in Fairfax schools. Can you tell people, what your job is and what you do and what it was like working in Fairfax County Public Schools before, before your Union 1?
No problem. So I'm a warehouse worker driver. So what we do is at the warehouse, we basically supply everything that the school needs, from toilet tissue to wrestling mats, student desks, everything you need, any and everything that a school would need. The working conditions, it can be really rough sometimes because we don't have enough man or woman power to get everything that's needed from the schools that order in whatever they may need. So it can be tough, but this victory, you can see the boost of the morale in the warehouse just yesterday, and it gives us hope, and it gives us that, oh man, we're finally seen. It's been so long that the operational side, we felt like other departments didn't even know we existed. But with this victory, now we feel like we have a voice, and the numbers alone show you how much we really wanted this. So we are super excited for this. I know this is the first step, and we have a battle ahead of us. But strength by numbers can do anything.
Absolutely. Eugenio, as a classroom educator, what were some of the problems that you faced personally and that were common among the bargaining unit employees in Fairfax County?
Wow. I don't know where you want me to start. The workload, that's probably the biggest challenge. Number size in classrooms. There's just this huge list of things. The thing that my colleagues and I will talk about, and this is going to be kind of a trite statement or cliche, but we have the proverbial lunchroom discussions, and it's almost always about like, well, what do they want us to do next? Where, there's just too much assigned to teachers to do, which is pretty much, humanly impossible to keep up with the amount of work that they want us to do.
Right. And so what kind of classroom sizes are we talking about? What kind of workload are we talking about? Just to kind of help folks understand some of the things that y'all are wanting to fight against.
Okay. So right now, I think we cap out at about 32 to 33. But if you have 5 classes of 32 to 33 kids, right. You're responsible for over 150 students. Well, we, IEPs, 504s, just the constant monitoring of grades, just parent-teacher conferences, the SEL lessons. I don't know. I'm using a lot of acronyms, and I apologize for that. But there's just, when you become a teacher, it's an impossible amount of data to try to tackle, to try to understand. I have a young man who I mentor this year, and he's phenomenal, right? My big concern is that he will get burnt out. And I've been in the industry for 24 years. I've been teaching since 2000. And I came in with serious, desires. And I know that he also has a lot of desires, but he's a 28-year-old. And the amount of we also have CT meetings. You have, reports that you're supposed to produce on a weekly basis, not to mention, just your subject planning. You might have 3 different preps. Again, for the audience that doesn't know what this entails, basically what you are doing is you are robbing from all of your personal time to be able to complete these tasks as a professional. In other words, you go home and you continue to work for another 3 to 4 hours every night. People say, and this is the cliche argument, well, you get two months off. I'm like, yeah, because we pack in 13 months into 10.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so, Isaiah, being in the operational unit, the operational unit was still, 81% is overwhelming, but it was lower than the instructional unit. And so I'm interested in what were some of the obstacles that you faced in, being a rank and file supporter, trying to talk to your coworkers, getting them to vote and vote for the union. What were some of the concerns that people people had in the operational unit, and how did you and your fellow union supporters address them?
Well, the biggest concern was the distrust.
Mm,
At first they didn't trust that this would even get to this point. And I have to be 100% honest with you. I was one of those people as well. And all that changed the day that I met Miss Leslie, or Miss Hughes. I call her Miss Leslie, but and she came in and she spoke to us, and she said it's what she didn't say that got me on board. She didn't promise anything. She didn't guarantee anything. She just said, we're going to do our hardest and everything in our willpower to get this ball moving. And that was that was the first time that I just truly believed that, okay, this can happen. You know, you hear a lot of politicians, you know, promise things and not being able to deliver on those promises, and not hearing, you know, those two words, which are simple words, it meant everything to us. So by coming in and being upfront and listening to us, that broke the barrier of the distrust.
mm, mm. And what about interactions with instructional staff? You know, was there a strong kind of cooperation between rank and file instructional staff and operational staff, or did it kind of operate as two parallel campaigns?
Well, from my experience, from speaking from just everyone instructional staff that I've come across with, it seemed everyone was on the same page.
Mm,
I even at one of the meetings, you know, I spoke up myself about the IAs. I think it is so just not right on what their pay scale is on the amount of work
mm,
that they do. And I've never stepped foot in the classroom to teach, but when I'm in the schools delivering supplies, I see what they go through on a day-to-day basis firsthand. And they also felt like they weren't heard. So this talking to them through the hallways and passing it was like we need to come together on this, because we're in the same boat, fighting the same fight. So yeah, it was we were together on this one.
mm. Right, right. And Eugenio, I'm wondering how you saw that divide from the other side. You know, what were some of the things that you were conscious of as the campaign was unfolding, in trying to make sure that, you know, the operational staff around you didn't feel left out during the campaign?
To be completely honest, I know a lot of the operational employees at my school, at the school I work at, but there was not that much conversation around this particular issue. It was more with my immediate colleagues that were hesitant. So I apologize. I can't answer that question directly.
No,
And
absolutely.
I
And so,
can kind of jump in and for that one, sorry. But
yeah,
like
no.
as far as like some of the custodians, a lot of them didn't even know that there was a vote going on. Because why?
Mm,
I mean, they're swamped with work. You get to certain schools and you might have two custodians for the whole school.
mm,
So if you think they have time to, you know, check and see what's going, they don't. And when the evening custodians come in, they have a load of work as well. So it was just about, I think it was about just them not understanding that this resource was out there for them.
mm.
And that was a hard thing. That was hard to spread the word, because a lot of them kind of, you know, are almost on their way out. So they're just kind of like, you know, I'm just gonna just deal with it. You know, I got a year or two left to go. So
Right.
that was a obstacle.
And so, Eugenio, what were some of the obstacles that you faced as you were talking to your immediate coworkers about the campaign?
I think one of the biggest obstacles was the stigma around unions,
Mm,
about the politics. You know, if a coworker is, you know, conservative leaning and they think that the unions are, you know, just another form of, an extension of like the Democratic Party, and I'm like, this is to advocate for our It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with, well, I mean, it does have to do with politics in terms of like what gets proportioned and who gets, funded. And so my big, conversations would be about, let's look at other counties, like say, for example, Montgomery County in Maryland, as opposed to Fairfax County. These are comparable size, but they have collective bargaining. And then we would get some conversation, and I'm trying to explain to them about, well, Virginia's a right to work state. Maryland is a closed shop state, and I don't know. Again, I imagine some of your listeners are going to know the differences, but my colleagues have no idea what that meant. And I was just like, well, what's going to happen is that should we get this, we're going to have the opportunity to come as one group. Right now, we're basically at-will employees. We have individual contracts. And, to put it bluntly, that sucks. You can't go up against Fairfax County School Board as an individual. You can go and beg and plead. And that's what I was trying to convey to teachers is that where we come united, right, that's where all the strength is going to happen. And so, for example, we didn't get a step increase this year. We got barely a 4% raise. We had a 2% raise at the beginning of the year that was going to sunset at the end of June. And trying to explain all this stuff, teachers, they don't know this. They don't pay attention to politics, So I'm the one that's in there in the lunchroom, and I'm in my small, tiny little coterie of teachers. But there are thousands of other teachers where this conversation is not happening. And so the education component, ironically, with educators is almost non-existent. So there was just all this misinformation about like, well, the union is trying to, and I was like, no, there are two unions. It's FEA, it's FCFT, and they're joining, they're coming together. They're going to be one big bad union, meaning bad good, right? So there was just a lot of fear and hesitation about like, oh, should I join? They're going to make me pay. I was like, no, that's the thing about right to work states. You get all the benefits and you don't have to pay the dues. So I finally was able to convince some of my coworkers and be like, I'm not saying that we're going to go on strike, right, if we don't get a pay raise, but that is something that would not even be entertained. That you can't do you could try and do a wildcat strike or whatever they're called, like where you can be like, I'm going to work less hours, I'm not going to grade as many papers, that stuff. I'm like, but it's a drop in the bucket. You're not going to get any traction with that. So trying to explain to teachers just the importance of this membership and this monumental, change. It was difficult with teachers, right? I am super, encouraged by the fact that so many voted. Like you said, the numbers were just like what 90+% that voted in favor, and that's where I was just like, thank God, the masses have spoken.
Right.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
And so, David, moving from one fight to the next, having won the election, now the next step is to bargain a first contract. Logistically, what are some of the next steps that y'all are going to be taking in this contract fight? And what are some of the, do you have an idea of some of the top priorities that you're going to come to the table with? Or do you have a plan to, have a, extensive kind of member survey around what or do you feel like you already have a good idea of what the members their top priorities are? So yeah, what are some of the next steps towards bargaining, and what are your priorities going to be? How are you going to decide them?
Well, the big thing that we have kind of circled on our calendar right now is the date that actually comes from the resolution that Fairfax County passed, and that date is September 1st. September 1st is when we have to have a first proposal of any contract items that could have a financial cost attached. And so that is the date that I have circled on my calendar, and I'm sure Leslie has it circled in her calendar too. And so, like you said, this summer, we want to try to get feedback from as many teachers, as many operational folks as we possibly can, because this isn't my contract. This isn't Leslie's contract. This is the contract for the workers of Fairfax County. So we have an initial bargaining survey that we are working on getting out to folks, and we are going to be pushing that hard. And then we also are obviously going to be setting up our actual bargaining committee, because, it can't be me at the table. It can't be Leslie at the table. Like we need a lot of voices represented, where there are a lot of people that need representation. So we're going to be working on trying to get that set this summer, kind of in mind with the fact that September 1st is the real important date here.
Right, right. And so, Leslie, you know, are you expecting that Fairfax County is going to be amicable at the table and bargain with you fairly and give you the contract you deserve without without much trouble, or what kind of fight are you expecting to go into in September?
So the answer is yes. I do believe that they will come and bargain in good faith. However, I am very well aware that while the superintendent and the school board members, I do believe that they want certain things to happen and they want this to be very positive. I am also aware that when you get lawyers and other people involved, that it can become nasty. But what I will say is that one of my biggest things is integrity. And so we're coming to the table with integrity. We're going to make sure that we have people like Mr. Fisher and Mr. Woods and educators there who are able to they will have been trained for every aspect of this bargaining at this table. And we have to, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. While I am here saying that, yes, I believe that they will come to the table and they will bargain in good faith. We want open bargaining. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of what is going on. But you don't know that till you get to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob, I'd like to say one thing. To go back, our instructional and our operational staff were never divided. I made a conscious decision not to move this campaign without our operational staff. And the reason was because we cannot do our jobs as instructional staff without our operational staff. And David and I understood that. So it was very important for us to move in that manner. But the two of them weren't necessarily divided. Actually, as Mr. Wood said, he's the one that brought to my attention, and I knew what was happening with instructional assistants, but he was so passionate as a warehouse driver about what he had seen in schools. And he brought forth what was happening with instructional assistants. And then he started talking about custodians. So, we have advocates on these teams.
Right. That's really great to hear, because there can be, in some cases, there can be a big divide between operational and instructional, even though it's exactly as you said, the instructional could not do their job without the operational, and right. The operational staff depends on the labor of the instructional staff to have the institution. They're really interdependent, and it is it's a shame and a really sad state of affairs when there isn't the unity there that there should be and intuitively should be. I've been consistently impressed with the emphasis from this campaign on uniting instructional and operational staff. And so, Leslie, we'll hear from I'm sure some other folks are going to have an answer to this question as well, or some other thoughts, but we'll start with you since we're with you. Just as a general, and this has been alluded to previously in our conversation, that there are some folks out there that think that everything that has ever gone wrong in a public school ever is the fault of a teachers union. And we all have, and we talked about some problems that we see with the public education system in this interview, right? So none of us are naive or blind to issues in the public education system, but obviously we have a different prognosis or a diagnosis of what the problem is. But there are some people that are like, the reason everything is so bad in the school system is because of teachers unions. Leslie, why are they wrong?
So let me start off, Jacob, by saying that we are not a teachers union. we have many classifications in our union.
Mm.
So let me correct that. And I see that a lot in all of these articles. We are not a teachers union. And so they're wrong because of a fundamental misunderstanding of what unions are. We don't exist to protect bad teachers. In fact, if you're not good for kids, I don't want you in front of a classroom.
Mm.
We don't exist to protect bad teachers. That's not what we're here for. We exist to protect a fair process for everybody. We're not run by the proverbial union bosses you see in the movies. I'm a special education teacher. David Walrod is a special education teacher. We're run by your child's first grade teacher, your special education teacher. Unions are run by, bus drivers and, the kind lady who help families register for school.
Mm.
Education unions are important because we know the systemic gaps. We know the gaps. We know where everything is firsthand. So if you stop and you think about it, we're the ones who see the damage and the flaws of the high stakes testing, and we're the ones that bring it forward. David and I do that on a regular basis. So I can go on and on. We know the impact of the budget because we live it every day.
Mm.
These two gentlemen that you have here who are rank and file, they live it every day. When we were in the classrooms, we were getting, that's the pay that we were getting. We know the importance of character traits and, such as kindness and compassion. And we, the teachers, can teach it. We always have. We've been mom, we've been dad, we've been doctors, we've been nurses. We've done it all. So when I hear people say everything is bad because of the, as they put it, teachers unions, I'm like, I don't think that they are aware of everything that goes on in our profession. We know our profession. We're the experts.
Right.
It was a lot, but that gets me riled up. And it gets me riled up because right now, Jacob, our profession is slowly draining. Not just, we're not just losing teachers, we're in the process of losing resources. And, there's a potential impact, by lazy and greedy politicians. There's a lot. So,
Right.
Elections matter. There's a lot. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to that. But we are not trying to destroy education. If you don't have us, there will not be any education. Now, let's think about that.
Right.
Where do we want to go to?
Right. That's exactly right. Eugenio, was there anything that you wanted to add, as a response to some of those ideas that we face, in the community and probably in the media more than the community, actually?
Yeah, without naming, any of the big, federal, nationwide players in terms of media and the amount of disinformation and propaganda that just gets hurled at educators in general. I cannot agree anymore. Leslie and I, she's family, and she knows because she was in the trenches with me, that you become, if you are committed to this and you do this for a passion, right? Again, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's something that I do because I want to help kids. I am that kid that needed the help, and so I became that person that wanted to help the kids. We are these huge targets, right? We are just the proverbial, whipping boys. If I hope that's not an inaccurate or a offensive analogy, but everything from work hours, everything from the amount of personal items that you have to pay for. Fairfax County will not give teachers a spending budget, and you can deduct how much, like $250 from your federal taxes. Every teacher I know spends at least $500 to $600 to $700 to $800 a year on stuff like Kleenex, right? Hand sanitizer, markers, and I mean, if you're a teacher in Fairfax County is in fact, it's a fantastic county. It's got a lot of resources, $3.8 billion budget. I make sure to explain that to my students, like that means you guys get an average of about 15 to 16,000, I don't know. But you can't live in Fairfax County if you're a beginning teacher. You literally cannot. If you're a $60,000, and this is a teacher, I'm not talking custodial staff, right? If you're a teacher and you came out of college and you've got like a $50,000 college loan and you're making $60K, my niece, and I mean, I'm hoping that she'll hear this at some point, she has to room with people, but I'm like, you make $60K a year. I would have never thought of making that much money as a 22-year-old. Well, she can't live in this county. There's no way that she can buy in this county. I'm trying to help teachers. So that's a really huge component. But then you get the squeeze on the other side where you're like, but you're the reason for everything being wrong. From grooming students, I'm like, grooming students. If I could groom a student to bring a pencil, that would be my biggest grooming. I mean, it's just all these kind of really cockamamie ideas about like what kind of power. Like, well, if you think we have all the power, then that would be great. Show us the appreciation in terms of not just monetary compensation, but also, a lessening of the professional and hiring more staff to help us do this out. Because again, I can talk to you forever about, like I was mentioning before, what are the, tertiary activities that teachers have to do that if we don't do them, then the system starts to fall apart and we just take it upon ourselves. It's like, hey, that's just part of my job. Well, it shouldn't be, Again, I wouldn't ask a doctor, to come to my house and cut my grass, right? Because like, well, isn't that part of your job? It's almost the kind of thing that we do. Like we go out and do, we'll buy kids stuff. And that's not that you don't want to. That's definitely part of the thing that teachers want to do. But when you're talking about limited supplies that teachers have, again, you're like, okay, well, we're not getting compensated for this stuff. And if we are truly going to help, like Leslie said, what's the alternative? You got to recognize us as a professional, class, and you got to pay us as such, and just give us the respect that we deserve. Again, in terms of like diminishing, responsibilities. You can't ask us to teach, again, the SEL stuff I mentioned earlier. It's called social emotional learning. Well, that's a huge component. A lot of teachers have a really hard time with it. Where I'm like, okay, I want to teach kids resilience. Yeah, absolutely. But are you passing off more and more of these responsibilities onto teachers that were like, I don't necessarily know that I should be doing that. My subject is Spanish. I mean, I don't need to teach executive functioning. I do want to teach kids through my lesson plans, but I have a special class on its own that I have to do this with. Right. That's tough.
Yeah. I've always thought it was strange that supposedly the teachers' unions control the entire education system, and yet they, for some reason, teachers still, their salaries are not very high. They continue to have extremely high class sizes. They don't get very large stipends for buying supplies for their classrooms. It's really weird state of affairs if the teachers are controlling everything. But what do I know? Just to wrap up, we had a question in the chat from Mel, because in Alabama, the legislature just passed an enormous $100 million privatization scheme, pulling $100 million from the public schools in Alabama, directing them to private schools where, we all know the statistics. Most of the people in private schools, they're already wealthy. Certainly the median salary of parents of private school kids are significantly higher than public school kids. All of the reasons that it's a bad idea. Is there a similar push for legislation like that in Virginia, David?
There definitely is. Our legislature, there's a new legislature every 2 years, and every 2 years a new legislature comes in and some folks try to push bills like that through. Luckily, a lot of our legislators, especially some of our Fairfax delegation, they see through that and they recognize the fact that that it is a scam, and it is just an attempt to, funnel money away from the public sector, from the public school system, and they have not had much traction. In fact, this last General Assembly, previously there had been quite a few bills that had to be rejected. This year there were almost none. So I think folks are starting to learn their lesson here, that we love public schools here in Virginia. We recognize that public schools are kind of the basis of a democracy. We recognize that public schools are the path forward for ensuring that our students have a good start to their education. If somebody wants to, if somebody feels that private school is a better fit for their student, that's absolutely fine. But they don't need public money to pay for their private decisions.
Right. Well, everybody, I really appreciate your time. I've enjoyed the interview and appreciate everybody tuning in to the interview. I think this is good stuff. And we're going to be continuing to follow this story as 27,000 union members in Fairfax County, Virginia, begin to bargain their first contract, and look forward to them winning significant gains for all of their members. So again, appreciate everybody for taking the time with us this morning. Leslie Houston, educator, special education educator, and president of the Fairfax Education Association. David Walrod, also special education teacher and president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. Eugenio Fisher, a Spanish teacher and rank and file supporter of the union campaign. And Isaiah Woods, warehouse driver, also rank and file supporter of the campaign. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.